and somebody could say, oh, no, we're still going to have volleyball tournaments. They haven't had them in a long time, other than families playing volleyball. So, but it used to be quite big, and I don't want to make it a hazard for anybody if they want to play volleyball. And but I would say it'd be a good thing, and the unmowed area would be adjacent to that, would be the western edge to the south. Probably from say 50 or 100 feet, whatever that was convenient, and that's where the bluebird boxes that would go, somewhere in there.
So I have a question. You said that there's the Japanese honeysuckle is the invasive species that you're concerned about?
Well, here's the thing. So I do a lot of invasive species work, but it's loaded. I did write in my email, but basically Japanese honeysuckle, buckthorn, bittersweet, vinca would be probably and multiflora rose would be the most notorious, invasives.
And how would you propose to remove it?
Well, I've been, like, my own house had a whole bunch of stuff like, burning bush and stuff like that. And over the years, most are easy to rip out by hand. If I needed to if there was a buckthorn tree, I have had the town cut down a few trees that were hazardous to my fence and property over the years because they were damaged or whatever, and they were agreeable. If that's something I need to ask them to do. But buckthorn can be cut down, and you can put, the buckthorn bag over it, the baggie, and it stops the sprouting of it. So it's common practice. But most buckthorn, and most of these are small enough that they can just be removed with, by hand. We have a tool called the weed wrench, which it's this big, and basically it's a set of jaws. When you put it on the root, the roots are very shallow. It rips right out, and then you just dispose of it in the not in the garbage, but in the yard waste.
Do you ever envision using any pesticides or herbicides in this process?
No, I would not do that. So no, it'd just be, it's like our lawn is pesticide free and herbicide free. So I would just do the same thing. You can win. It just takes a lot of time.
Know if it's helpful or not, but I feel like the Conservation Advisory Council could, offer to efforts, so that when he speaks to the Highway Department, he could say that CAC is behind the efforts, supportive of the efforts.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to things that we've been doing at Blatnick Park. It's like me.
Yeah, no, actually, I think removing the invasive species in the way you proposed would be extremely beneficial to the park. I think adding native species, what type of species are you talking about?
Well,
wildflowers? Are you talking about trees?
No, plants that are beneficial to, like, pollinators, butterflies, that type of thing. I wouldn't plant trees. I would be planting bushes, and the bush, hazelnut is a great one. Let me think here. Clethra is a nice native one. Blueberries are a nice native one. But I've been working a lot with Saratoga Plan, as they do weekly stuff like this. They remove stuff. So I would, I'm an engineer, not a botanist. So I would certainly try and get a little bit of input from. I have a few friends, like Chris Williams is the head of the PRISM, the invasive species for the area. I would definitely get, or from Saratoga Plant or Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy. I know them quite well. So I would probably try and get some, and look, a good sized bush costs money. So, but the idea would be, if you could plant a 5 or 7 year old, you could probably get it donated by Saratoga Nursery or in some of these not fattings. They don't have a lot of native plants, but somebody like that. So we've done that in the past. Not here, but
Does anybody have comments? Or
So one, definitely all for it. So you're turning it from a mowing to no mow.
Well, just, I would take obviously, the whole thing is still could be used by families to, to play volley, but you could still have a big volleyball tournament. But I was thinking starting on a small scale, maybe 50 or 75 feet, going from, south of the basketball court, down to the south. That's
Towards Buckingham? Is that sound right?
exactly towards Buckingham. So that, yeah, I mean, it's like if anybody walks over there and I go out there every day. I honestly, like not every day, but every day or two, and pick up garbage or whatever on the basketball court. And if you see anybody use that, it's not frequently used.
So when I'm looking at it and I see the playground, is that the volleyball? So you're talking along that back side.
Yeah, along would be the west side of that,
Okay.
the Westmoreland side of that.
Okay. So I'm definitely all for invasive species. When I met with Ray, so I have walked Blatnick Park with Roy and with and I'm forgetting
Andrew.
Ray, and is Andrew his son?
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so it's with him, and most of all of the problems that I kept butting up. A lot of the getting rid of the invasive species required special permits from DEC once they got to a special size, and that they also had to then be taken someplace special because they were invasive. So they have this process that they do or don't do, or however it works. So that was sort of what I was told.
Yeah.
And then, but I'm definitely for getting rid of invasive species and adding more, native back there, and any way that we can do.
No,
that.
that's why I'm here. I'm just a one person and I've spoken to a lot of people and been involved, but you get rid of Japanese knotweed, you can't give it to a yard waste. It's heinous. It's dangerous. Yes. You have to kill the stuff, in black bags before then you throw it in the trash, so so I'm familiar with that. But even with the DEC, with Japanese honeysuckle, it was just taken as yard waste. But I can certainly, that's why I'm here. So but I would check. I got all the time in the world. Nothing's happened yet. So
yeah.
I appreciate that's a good comment. I don't know. And I did talk to Roy Thornton. I mean, we walked around. He was like, oh my God, look at all this, every one I just mentioned,
right.
It's like,
yeah.
So, but I'll start with that. And, and I work with the DEC all times in my own stuff, projects, which are unlimited. So we could certainly, happy to, before we did anything that didn't work out, that was not right.
Yeah, and I do know that just this past spring, Roy Thornton, he built bluebird houses with he had a whole bunch of bluebird houses that he wanted to construct. So we linked him up to the with the Boy Scout group, and so those Boy Scouts assembled those. And he thought he had more than what he needed for over at Black.
Yeah, he offered probably enough. I would probably start with 4. He offered those to me. I would probably have to buy a pole. Who cares? Like a pole and a baffle perhaps. But it's I've done this before, so it's not a big deal. But he offered. He said he had extras.
Okay.
So I probably am all set there.
Yeah. No.
Going back to the low-mo initiative, to the low-mo, the town recently, we completed the second phase of the natural resources inventory. And one of the recommendations was to have more of these areas which are not mowed by the town. And in addition to being environmentally friendly and all that, it also has a lot of cost benefits to the town. And separately, we did the greenhouse gas inventory, and the person who made the presentation Jim Yeager, right? He also mentioned that there is greenhouse reduction, gas reductions, and cost savings for the town for every acre that is not mowed. So, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Like working through Roy Thornton over a number of years, there is a kind of a compromise between the needs of the disc golf people and the needs for meadow birds and their nesting habitats out there in Blatning Park. It took a number of iteration, and Roy presented some maps of where to mow and where not to mow. I think. Oh, who did the maps? Okay, Ellen presented some maps.
So what happened was Niskayunas Parks decided to put in a frisbee golf course, and because it is put in by the town and it was supposed to be maintained by the town, but Roy and the mowing were not always linked up to understanding the paths. So the guy who helped Niskayuna many years ago design it, he and I got together and we walked it, and then he sent them a mowing map, and he said he would ride with them so that all they have to do is mow the map so that people can use the disc golf, because we were trying to limit the mowing and maximizing the disc golf thing. So that's sorry.
That's
But Roy
fine.
and I definitely walked, and Roy was the one who pointed out all the invasive species.
And thank you for that clarification, Ellen. I mean, it's a necessary clarification. And so we already have a precedent for like disc golf and the low mow kind of coexisting. So I don't see why we can't have a volleyball place for those families that need it, and have some wildflowers and nesting bird habitats, and save the town some money by not. That looks like a pretty sizable chunk on the map right there. So Chairman, would you be open to having a quick vote on being supportive of Mr. Neeson's proposals?
Discussion on this?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Steve, for coming and sharing this idea with us. And I just want to be clear, this is still an idea that you're presenting to the town. And your next step after presenting this idea to us is to talk with the Parks Department. And I think while the Conservation Council clearly supports the removal of invasive, well, I clearly support the removal of invasive, replacing with anything that's native and or supportive of the pollinators. My concern here is this is still a park that is used by the community in ways that we're not sure about. I know you live there, you probably have all the data, but I would have to defer to the parks team how much impact your plan would have on reducing free and open space for people to play. And we've played soccer over there, things like that, or the little kids have the soccer practice. So I'd want to hear that. The second piece I'd want to know more about before I would entertain a vote on this is just a plan. You've come to us with ideas, which is great. We've tossed around a bunch of names of plants and things that we want to do.
Right.
Still a little vague for me. My concern is that step-by-step process the town will go through to give you the right to change the landscape in a public park. So we have to follow that. Once I understand what that plan is and what is going to be swapped in and out, comfortable, Chairman, with voting on something. No doubt I favor the idea. I am concerned that taking away free and open space in this part of town, this is the only free and open space, might be concerning. But I also think what you're trying to accomplish is a wonderful thing. So I would like to hear more what they think about this, and then I'd like to see what's on the plan, and that includes resources, timeline, and how the town would go about supporting this or not supporting it, as the case might be. Thank you.
Okay, great. Daniel, do you have anything you want to add on this? or-
Follow that.
Okay, so Georgia, do you have anything you want to add?
No, that was pretty comprehensive, and I agree, a plan would be useful for the plantings especially.
So what I've heard, and correct me if I'm overstating this, I think that the council is supportive of your proposal on a high level general thing, that putting birdhouses in there, taking up invasive species in a natural way that doesn't use pesticides or herbicides, adding native species and advocating LOMO are all objectives of this committee. I think, though, what I'm hearing is that we need to coordinate, or you need to coordinate with the park committee of the town of Niskayuna, and you probably need to get some sort of input with the residents to make sure that we're not overstepping what they want. I mean, I think from a step forward, I think we can get a lot of support. I think there's a lot of support in the community, but I think you sort of need that support there because you really don't want to backlash. And then the last thing I just happened to notice is if we did LOMO back there, that I would appreciate to keep public access to them from, what is that, Stratford?
Stratford, but no, I wouldn't advocate doing the whole thing because the park is still used.
Yeah,
So
I think if we coordinate this with some of the stakeholders, I think there's definitely things in the positive motion, positive direction here. So if people agree with that, maybe we can put together a motion of support with some caveats. Would you like to do that? Sure.
Put together a motion.
Would you? Yeah, support, a motion of support.
Laura wanted to say something.
Well, I was just gonna say, I can have a map if you want. So, and what I heard, just so you guys understand, is here's the basketball court. So I think he's talking about a Lomo strip along the
Yeah.
trees between the basketball court, like here, not taking the whole thing.
Yeah, just take
a little
it
strip,
like, because.
kind of like we have on Bunny Park.
Yeah, the width of that is about 300 feet. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Oh, yeah, no,
I'm a bunch of boards. You don't need to do a motion. I think this is it's good information. And I think tomorrow I can meet with Ray Smith. I really did this because Mr. Smith, it takes time to get a hold of him. So that's why. And I wanted to get some good ideas from people here. So when I go to the meeting tomorrow morning, I can say, yeah, well, we talked about that or this, because they're all good. All have good points. So, you're supportive. That's great. I think we're all supportive, but it's just an idea. It's nothing more than that. So you don't need to put anything.
well, what I was going to propose is just a very high level of support of the actions, coordinating with the town. And that the specifics need to be worked out with the stakeholders.
Totally.
I just think that might help
Okay.
things if the board was willing to do that. I kind of thought that's what I heard.
I think that clarifying that you want to take the invasive species out of that, what is considered woods and replacing it is a good clarification. And also there is a distinction between parks and highway. So Ray is highway, so they mow the parks, but there is a separate person. I apologize. I don't know the person's name off the top of my head who's in charge of the parks. Andrew, sorry, yeah.
Good point.
So, yeah, so that both those are two entities that, sorry.
And Steve, could you tell a little bit about the, you talked about the length of your proposed LOMO. Could you talk about what your proposed width?
Well, I would say at least, I would say at least 50 feet, because that's the Bluebird boxes, is about 50 feet. You probably want to do 60 feet by the length, which I think is 800 feet, something like that. So it's really not that substantial. I mean, what's 60 times 800 is what, it's only 48, 10 times 800 is 10,000, or 10 times, that is 10 times 800 would be 8,000. So if you did 6 times that, that's 48,000. That's an acre. It's whatever, 43,560. So that, but I agree with Laura. I can, it's hard for anybody to make the distinction without, if you put something on a map, it's a lot easier to see. And again, I just walked it with Roy. That's all we did. We walked it and pasted it off. So we have a good idea of what it is, but we haven't really put it on a map. So if it comes to it, it's easy enough to put on a map.
Just something you can offer them that I'm
Right.
happy to work with you to
Yeah.
make a map so
Right.
that's clear.
Yeah. And again,
And I would make one suggestion for the map that you're making, Laura, to maintain community engagement in the area, maybe addressing that point as well. You could put a walking path through the no-mow area and areas where people could sit on a bench. And then that would encourage people to enjoy the no-mow area like another feature of the park.
Okay, so what do we want to do here? Chuck, did you want to make a motion or?
Make a general motion to be of the idea at a bird's eye viewpoint, but also acknowledging Chuck's excellent point that the specifics need to be ironed out and community input needs to be taken into consideration.
Are people happy with that? Motion of support?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
does somebody want to second that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of high level support of the general principles here, but we have work to do?
Aye.
What?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Daniel made the second, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellen. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, the support carries.
Good, thank you.
I wish you well.
yeah, well, we'll start tomorrow. I mean, it's the first day. I'll
Yes.
I'll find out tomorrow morning. Maybe we'll get some more requirements or move forward. I mean, honestly, the invasive species part is so easy because you're not changing anything. You're just getting rid of something bad and replacing it. It doesn't affect, it affects everybody positively. I
Yeah.
don't know how you get any feedback. Taking some of the park, that's another story, and I'm totally aware. Maybe it's too difficult to mow or whatever, and that's a whole nother story. So
Mhm.
it could be broken into two things.
Yep.
The way I see it, and and then one may be a lot more difficult than the other to accomplish, but at least you could accomplish one pretty straightforward.
If you're willing to take this on, I think it's really commendable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Constant battle.
And Roy Thornton, he's really fond of those grassland birds, and he took this on, and he's been really persistent over the years.